So hey, this is Efren J with the Modesto View magazine. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my recorded conversation I had with Mr. John Wicks from Fitz and the Tantrums. We're going to be talking a little bit about their latest record, More Than Just a Dream, and their upcoming show in Oakland at the Fox Theater on April 3rd. So let me go ahead and play on that. Hey John, this is Efren with the Modesto View magazine. I want to thank you for your time. I guess my first question is how'd you all come up with the name Fitz and the Tantrums?
Well, his name is Michael, the band leader, is named Michael Fitzpatrick, F-I-T-Z, and so I think a buddy of his came up with it and said, saw the relations between Fitz and Tantrums, and everyone calls him Fitz anyway, so it just sort of stuck, and he started asking around, getting his best friends' opinions whether they liked the band name, and everyone loved it, so it just sort of stuck.
Oh, right on. Okay.
So John, can you share a little bit of background information on the band members?
Okay, well, the band's been in existence now about 5 years, and we all were, the band was all session musicians that played in LA, did a lot of recording work with various artists. The collective resume in this band is pretty staggering. I myself played on Bruno Mars' record and CeeLo Green's record and several other people, and the list goes on as you go through the band. And so we had all worked together in either doing session work or just on pickup gigs around LA, that kind of thing. And when a mutual friend of mine introduced me to Fitz, Fitz told me he was looking for a drummer, and I listened to some of his songs and thought they were incredible, and said, yeah, I'm on board. And so he asked me to kind of make a few phone calls and put a band together for a show that he had already booked. He didn't have a band together yet, and so I called like 2 or 3 of my favorite musicians that I played with around LA, and he had a couple other people in mind as well, and we had one rehearsal and went and did our first show, and then it just sort of caught fire from there. None of us, before we knew it, we were on the road more than we were at home. And as far as the influences go, the very first record, which was called Songs for a Breakup, was more about kind of tipping our hat to Motown and that era, and a little bit of 80s influence. And then for this new record, it's sort of flipped. It's more of an 80s reference, since all the band members are all products of the 80s, and so there's definitely that influence. And there's still some of the Motown songwriting strength in there, but it's a lot of more synth-laden sounds and that kind of thing.
Perfect.
You know, one of my favorite songs on your new album is 6 a.m. and I really enjoy it. I'm curious on knowing what's the story on how this song came about.
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I can really speak to the lyrical content of it as much. I think Noel and Fitz were kind of responsible for that. And also, not to be dismissive at all, but a lot of times I like to not tell somebody the backstory behind a song, because by doing that, you sort of limit your audience, whereas, like, you said you like 6 a.m., that's the one that hit you hardest, and it means something to you. I don't want to spoil that by telling you, well, this is what it really means. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would like to have that be yours, you know, and for you to hang on to that and not sully it all by telling you some sort of backstory. But honestly, I can't even tell you the backstory of that song. I'm not really sure. But what I can tell you is that for me personally, that's one of my favorite tunes, because my humming influences got to come out in spades there, because it's kind of where my heart lies. And when I first heard the song, it immediately reminded me of one of my favorite drummers named James Gadsden, who is a session drummer from the 60s through the 80s, and still is active. Actually, just played on Beck's last record, and he's just an amazing drummer. But as soon as I heard that song, it just just immediately reminded me of him and sort of gave me my dream opportunity to try to imitate his style of playing. And that's what kind of came out of it there.
Right. What's the biggest challenge been for the band as a whole while traveling from gig to gig?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think the biggest challenge is, for me personally, it's just being away from family, my wife and kids. That's the toughest part, and to be honest, for me, that's the only tough part. You know, when I really think about it, I got the easiest job in the world. I get to show up, sit down at some drums, and make people party all night and dance and have a great time and forget about anything bad that may be going on in their life for an hour and a half. You know, it's the easiest gig ever. I love it, and but believe it or not, that longing for home and being away from your family, sometimes you can live how easy and fun that job is. So I think that's the biggest challenge for me. Now, we have recently had two new fathers in the band. Joe Carnes has a baby girl, and Fitz just had a baby boy. And so they're feeling the same thing. So I think it's starting to become more of a band-wide obstacle, is just getting over how much you miss your wife and kids. And so I think that's the toughest part. I guess keeping it fresh, you know, as much as we love these songs and love what they're doing out there and love how people respond to them, the challenge becomes, after doing a long tour, is to make it sound as though it's the first time you played those songs. And to have that same energy every night can be really tricky, because you've played it for 30 nights in a row and you're tired and sleep deprived, and you got to go out there and make it sound like it's fresh. So I guess that would be the next biggest challenge. And then the last challenge would be, frankly, just eating well, trying to stay healthy. You know, we got back from 3 weeks in Europe, and half the band got sick over there. You know, and it's just tough. You know, with the jet lag and lack of sleep and poor diet, you're pretty susceptible to getting sick. So I guess that would be the last challenge.
Yeah, it sounds to me you guys are living life like a rock star, eh? And it's nice to know that the band is...
You know, I totally... We're loving it, and it's great, but we're probably the nerdiest band out there. I mean, I'm like a vegan, and I run like almost 80 miles a week, even when I'm on the road.
Wow.
The other guys, no one really parties that hard, but you can't really. I mean, none of us are kids, you know what I mean? So, and we don't have that resilience that we did when we were in our early 20s, where you can just go out and drink and do whatever. So none of us really do. It's boring when it comes to that. So it's a little frustrating in interviews, because I always want to provide like some great tour fodder for somebody to write about. But frankly, we just we the show, get on the bus and go. You know, and that's really about it.
Well, that's 100% feel good, and I'm also the fitness editor for the magazine. I do Ironman triathlons and so forth, so laying down 80 miles a week while you're on tour, that's commendable for you, and I can totally respect how you'd want to continue living a healthy nutritional lifestyle while you're on there, but that can be really hard. Let me ask you this, would this be your first show? You have a show coming up in Oakland at the Fox on April 3rd. And is this your first time playing in the Bay Area, or have you played there before?
Oh, no, we've played there. Oh, my gosh. I've lost count. We've played in the Bay Area. They've been, that whole area has been on board with us since the very beginning. San Francisco was one of the first, sometimes it's for unexplainable reasons, first cities to really grab on. Before we even had anything on the radio or anything, San Francisco was one of those towns where we'd go to, and the club would be packed, and we're like, how do these people even know about it? You know, and that's so, the last 5 years, we've been hitting San Francisco quite often. actually, we even played the Fox Theater once prior. We were opening for the band Flogging Molly. We played such a beautiful theater. They did such a great job remodeling that. But that was actually our first tour, and we played at the Fox Theater opening for Flogging Molly. I remember that was really our first show with them, and we walked in there and looked at that beautifully remodeled theater and went, "Gosh, man, this is what it's like. This is what we want," because we were just the opening band, and now to be able to go back there and be the headliner is pretty.
The Fox Theater is amazing. I've seen a few shows there, and I would really appreciate the architecture and the Art Deco. That's all part of the Fox. Let me ask you about a little bit more about your show, your upcoming show. What can your fans expect to see and feel at your show there at the Fox?
Well, I get asked that question a lot, and I love that question because I always get to give my favorite answer, which is a hot and sweaty party from the time we start until the end. It just doesn't stop. It's just nonstop energy. I think we have one ballad. Yeah, we have one ballad that we'll probably do that gives us maybe just a slight breather. The band, at least, not the singers, but. We hit it hard from beginning to end, and it's just a party that you won't be able to wipe the smile off your face the entire time. Awesome.
You've been complimented nicely by many in the music industry, and your band actually has appeared everywhere mainstream. What are your thoughts and feelings, and how was that? What kind of experience was that to appear on the Ellen show for her birthday show? That was.
Ellen, well, first of all, we're all still kind of looking behind us, looking to see if people are clapping for somebody else. None of us can really, honestly believe that this is really happening, especially as quickly as it's happened. As far as bands go, we haven't been around for very long, and to have this degree of exposure so early on is pretty unheard of. And the other benefit of being in a band where you're not kids is that everyone has been around the block and can appreciate how rare this is, what we have, how rare it is. And so no one takes it for granted. Everyone's very thankful about it. So to answer your question, playing on Ellen, that's another one of those moments where it's kind of a pinch me moment where you're just, I can't believe I'm meeting this person, who I just adore, I think, and it was a dream come true because she's exactly the person you see on TV. She's a sweetheart and no ego and just so much fun, just a total blast. And I've had similar experiences with Letterman and Conan O'Brien, where I was so happy that these people are the people that you would hope they would be, and the people that you imagine them to be, and not some Jekyll and Hyde thing when the camera's not on them. So it was really great. Ellen, I can never thank her enough. She's really hooked us up in a big way.
Well, John, I want to thank you for sharing your time with the Modesto View magazine. We're looking forward to your show on April 3rd at the Fox Theater in Oakland, Fitz and the Tantrums. Thank you so much.
You bet. My pleasure, man. Thanks for the great questions. I appreciate it.